Hey guys, welcome to another hashtag Patchats, the podcast series of the Laugh at Pat channel. For those of you who don't know, once a month I do a podcast, and each month the podcast has a different theme. This month's theme is comics and the creative process. Now, this theme was inspired by this month's guest, which is my friend Garrett, who runs the YouTube channel Stimulus, which I have a link for in the description below, and I highly recommend that you guys check out. He has some really cool animations and stories on there and some funny videos. It's a great channel, and I really recommend checking it out, as well as checking out this conversation that we're about to have. But I knew Garrett before he had a YouTube channel, and I always thought he was a really interesting guy because, he's like a, designer and artist, and he was working on, making this independent comic. And I love when I meet someone who is kind of a connoisseur of a subject that I have a connection to, but that I'm, far from an expert in. And, that was kind of the dynamic when we would talk about comics. And so that's why I decided that the theme of this month's podcast should be comics for our conversation. And we discuss comics and, kind of the state and future, if there is any, of comics, and also what drew him to that art form and inspired him. And I thought that was really interesting. And then, the conversation kind of just naturally evolved into a talk about, the creative process and, being an artist and how you grow or find your audience as an artist, and how to, stay inspired and also not compromise yourself. And it was just a really cathartic conversation and inspiring. It made me be like, I want to keep grinding and keep trying to make my videos funnier and better and keep challenging myself. And I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think that you guys will as well. So I think I should shut up and let's get into it. First, of course, we got to play the theme song. Got to put up the theme graphic. I mean, why do you have a theme song and graphic if you don't use them? So let's roll the song and get to this conversation. It's interesting that, like, you say do you think like comics are dead, basically?
Comics are dead. It's official.
It's official.
Look at the numbers.
Let's write the eulogy. No, but it's that was like one of the questions I was going to get to a little later is, as I said, like I think connection with comics is, like the Sunday funnies. And when I think about like the days when there was Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side, like hilarious, insightful, smart comics, even like Zits when it first came out. There was Boondocks. There was like a bevy of stuff, and if you look now, it's all just like kind of syndication, or like a lot of the comics that are still going. It's I don't know. It's dead.
Well, that's interesting because I haven't looked at a newspaper in probably 20 years or whatever. So
maybe that's part of the problem.
So are you talking about newspapers, or where are you seeing these? Where are they posted?
In newspaper, yeah. Like I'll still look in the newspaper sometimes just to kind of see like I mean, it's the only part of the newspaper I'm really interested in looking at, but
yeah, that's how I used to be.
But so I guess the other thing I'll say then with that, since like you're right, so probably part of it is, for example, with that style of comic, nobody reads newspapers anymore, so where is the outlet for it? And the only comic that I would say that I actually read contemporarily, I just follow on Instagram. It's that Nathan's Strange Planet. Do you know the one I'm talking about? It's these like aliens, and basically it's kind of in the realm or something of like The Far Side, where it's making fun of just like typical human behavior, and but in the terms of these random aliens, and each one is,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a 4-panel thing contained, it's not, there's no continuous story or anything. But that's really the only comic I can think of that I'm following. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
world online where people are like publishing comics, and um that people are following them?
Well, not like the funnies. I mean, now that I look at that, I have seen that posted around. But yeah, I mean, I guess Instagram is a good place for that. Um, I also follow Poorly Drawn Lines, I think it's called.
Okay.
And they're just kind of, simple existential, um, things with animals or whatever. Just like really simple drawings. And other than that, I've seen there's some popular stuff on these webcomic sites. Look up the name of one of these. They're not for me. Let me put it that way. They're just not for me. They're for 15-year-old girls, and I'm a 33-year-old man, so I'm not gonna read those. But I did look into that because I thought, oh, like maybe this is a platform I would use, but my stuff wouldn't fit there.
So it's, when you say it's for 15-year-old girls, do you mean it's like a narrative? Is it like a narrative? Are they mostly narrative driven comics? Is it?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of that, like in the vein of like young adult stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a lot of vampires. There's probably no vampires. I'm just being an asshole at this point.
No, that's
Trying
what
to think of
girls
the
like.
name of
Girls
it.
like vampires, I think.
Girls love vampires, and what else do they like? I'm really in touch
Unicorns,
with
maybe. I don't know.
huh?
That was maybe sexist. I like unicorns, but okay. So
Unicorns are a man's game, dude. Okay, so let me think of this. So there was one called Tapas. Okay, this is the one that I tried to use because it was interesting. It was basically like a Web 2.0 thing where you upload your own comics and you share them just like you'd share anything else on social media, and people can read them, and some things float to the top.
yeah,
They get popular or whatever, and people can comment on them. And you usually post like one page every couple of days or something like that. It's like a different it's a different way of posting. I guess if you have an incentive to post page by page, because then you get a lot of hits on the page instead of posting an entire story, which is just, then you only get likes on the entire story.
yeah,
Does that make sense? So
totally.
that is sort of like these bite-sized things, which are, now that I'm looking at it, it's a lot of cute anime boys, and that's tapas.
Yeah, I feel like that format would make
like
it,
the appetizer.
that format seems like it would make it hard to follow like a story, really. Like I guess if you're checking every day, maybe you'll remember the last page from 2 days earlier or something.
Yeah, I don't know who's reading it like that, because if you're like doing what we used to do, and maybe you only read it on Sunday, but I would read the daily funnies when I was in high school or whatever.
Yeah,
Like that was that's how I started my day.
it's a good way to start a day.
I'd read Boondocks or whatever. But yeah, this other platform is called Webtoon, and I think this is the biggest platform for this. And right when I click on it, the first thing that comes up is just a couple of cute gay boys, and that's and I'm sure it's a great story. It's oh, is this a vampire? No, it's a wolf man. It says the wolf man. Okay, so it's a
Okay, so the other side of that same coin.
yeah. So yeah. I mean, this is also a cliche, and I don't know if this sort of like crosses over with the anime stuff, where there's a certain type of audience that likes stories about cute boys and their relationships. I like that every once in a while, but I don't, that's not like my go-to genre.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's interesting to me because it's not a genre I even realized existed in comics, let alone is like super prevalent.
well, that's where the money is, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about these like independent. It seems like in a lot of arenas, right? With people creating like podcasts or their own shows on YouTube or whatever. It's like the creative control is in the hands of the artists or whatever, and there's a better ability to like monetize that, where you don't need such a huge audience because there's no middleman. It's just you directly to your audience. And I would have assumed that you know that would carry over to the comic world, but it sounds like there isn't really a place of solid footing for that kind of thing. Would that be fair to say?
Um, I think it's in a weird place because there are so many exciting new platforms where just anyone can bypass a publisher and they just have their own thing and they just put it up on YouTube or whatever, and they get huge. And we never had that before. There were a lot of good artists that would just die in obscurity because they didn't have these sort of meritocratic spaces where there's just millions of talented people that people can see. The thing with comics, I think it's weird because the thing about a comic is it's best read as a comic, not as a web comic. So even though there are all these platforms for web comics, I think a lot of the indie guys want to sell something printed, and that eats into their costs to the extent where they basically break even. And so a lot of these guys are just they're just doing passion projects and self-publishing their things, and even the famous ones don't really make money off of it. And you'll see this at conventions now. I went to a few conventions as a vendor, just to see how it was. And I'm a nobody, so it wasn't like, I had some sort of like draw. But people would come up and they'd just say like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. What do you?" And it was interesting to talk to people. But then like next to me, there'd be like the big guy, and they weren't doing well.
That's interesting to me, because I would think, if you're a success, like that the model would be, you get people interested in your story with the online version, and then once they're a fan, they're going to want to consume it in, the nice printed version.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah.
But that's not the case. Or it seemed like it wasn't the case.
I think the infrastructure is just different. Like we were talking about, like how newspapers have gone away. Now you don't have that platform. I think the reason why Japan still has a thriving, industry is because they have comic stands everywhere. You get off the train and you pick up a comic. You're not doing that here.
That's true. Well, okay, so that reminds me.
But you are looking at your phone all the time. So you'll see like the things that are going to be successful are things that are probably on Instagram.
Yeah.
Something that you just flip through it on your feed. And it's just different.
Yeah.
It's not as magical as holding the paper, smelling the paper, seeing the high pixel density that's printed out. You know, if it's printed at 300 DPI or whatever, maybe you have that on your phone. I don't know, but it's different on a page.
Yeah.
And I think that's gone.
I mean, is there any way that it could go the way of, like the record store, where it's not how most of us are going to be listening to our music day to day, but for a certain selection of people, they value that experience. And so it becomes, a kind of a niche, that it's not going to die and completely go away. The printed comic, like that comic book stores will still exist. Or do you think that they're
Yeah.
on their way out as well?
Um, I think the stores are going to disappear. I think what's going to happen is, ironically, people are going to get big on Instagram, and then they'll say, "Oh, now that you like all my digital stuff, I'm coming out with an actual book." And then they'll buy that, and it'll be sold digitally in some store, Amazon, whatever fulfillment center there is, and then it'll come full circle, and people will actually have the books, but you won't be able to make it as a comic book artist or writer or whatever initially in that format. You have to still go through the digital channels because that's the only platform available right now, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
That makes sense. Well, okay, so the other thing, you touched on a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. So one, you were talking about the kind of success of comics in Japan, and it reminded me, I wanted to go back, you were talking about, like Tintin and stuff. Is there anything interesting happening in the comic world coming out of that area? Or, because I mean, like, I love the Tintin comics, but I have no idea if they still make them, and I'm ignorant of any other, of that style of comic or comic coming from that area.
Like the French style. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well,
I mean, there's certainly people that imitate it, and you'll see that influence everywhere. Like Mobius is another big French guy, and everyone's ripping him off even today. So I don't know. I mean, I see it in a lot of people's artwork. I don't know what the scene is like in France right now, because I haven't been in a while.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then the other thing you talked about going and being like a vendor in the one of these like independent comic conventions. I was wondering if you could, because like when you told me about doing that, I was like, hey, that's super cool. And I always love when I discover something that I just had like a whole world that I had no idea existed. So could you just talk a little bit about, like, I don't know, the world of independent comics and like, and how, like, what brought you to that?
Oh, well, I just, I always liked black and white comics. Like I said, that's something that appeals to me. And I just thought it would be cool if I could capture that, in the same way that whenever I see someone talented doing something, I think, oh man, if I could just do like I don't have to get to that level, but if I could just do it a little bit, wouldn't that be cool? And so that's, anything that I've tried to do has been because of that, aspirational feeling. And then going to the conventions was just like, I felt like I was old. I think I started doing it was like 30 or something. Maybe my late 20s, I don't remember. But I was just like, well, shit. I've always wanted to, make my own stuff. And, you just sort of like forget about your creative, artistic dreams after a while. And you get, you get worn down by the daily grind at work or whatever. And so I was just like, well, shit, I'll just, I'll get out there and see what it's like. And it was always a disaster financially for me. And I would meet a lot of interesting people, some of whom were successful, barely. But most people, were older than me, and they're just like, yeah, this is just what I do now. And it's like, I'm probably going to break even. Um,
And
and
are those people making it work by doing other kind of like freelance design, and then their comics are just that's their art and their, as you said, like their passion project?
Yeah. So I think most of the people just had a day job and a passion project, which is what I had. And so I was like, okay, well, this is fine. I mean, I can just sort of like keep doing this and build up a small audience. I'd be happy with that. It's fun. It's it's great getting to meet people, whether they're interested in art or fellow artists, But yeah, I spent like, I don't know. I made a video about this. So like I documented my worst financial disaster at this convention that was just, it was dead. And I think I lost, somewhere between $500 and $900.
Shit.
But I mean, it was sort of like, well, I still have the stuff. Like I have a closet full of comics and posters and business cards and things. So I still have that, that I could maybe offload somewhere. But it was like, well, wish I would have sold some of it.
But I mean, I guess, you could go to a convention as a fan and spend that amount of money. Um so and you still got to have like the convention experience, right?
Yeah, but I mean, don't you think conventions are going away, at least in the foreseeable future? I mean, a lot of this stuff, as flawed as it was, is not even going to exist. So like that could be the thing that finally kills this little indie industry that was kind of holding on.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. I mean, um yeah, I think there's probably a lot of examples of, you know, the people who, so, I guess, like, I'm not like a comedian, but I think like the thing I would say that I know the most about is like the world of comedy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, those people who are like established comedians, or even just, who were touring the country as like a feature act, like a middle, I think those people will be fine. But when I think about like the general idea of like the comedy scene, I wonder what this current state will do to it, because it's an art form where it's like the only way you can get good at it is by doing it. And
Yeah.
so, you have to go to all these open mics and just suck for like 5 years at least, and so people who were maybe just starting to get good and then all of a sudden have to not do open mics for a year, or doing these like Zoom comedy shows, which I think does not translate, or people who are just starting out, like what does that do to the comedy scene? How does that change how the comedy scene looks in like 10 years, when those people would be getting good and would be, becoming the next Taylor Tomlinson, or Bill Burr, Tom Segura, whatever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um so
Yeah.
I think that's,
Very similar thing.
yeah.
And so they're going to have to go virtual. And a lot of people that I like follow who do stand up are just now writing. And so that's not stand up, but luckily for them, they can also write. And so they have their side projects that aren't on a stage. But yeah, they're going to have to, like we're saying, do something that's either on YouTube or Instagram that's not what they're used to. And it's going to have to adapt to this new model of people just scrolling through their feed or whatever. And I'm talking mostly about the little guys who are trying to find an audience, because I think the bigger names can just sort of like I don't know, record a special and put it out on their own platforms, which I guess is what they're doing now.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right about that, and that was my point about the comedy thing. Is I think probably, you know, across the board, that level of artistry, right, where you're like, you know, you're just trying to get get good at it, you know, learn, find your voice, whatever, you know,
Hmm.
for writers, performers,
And find an audience.
and find an audience. Exactly. It's I think it's going to be a hard time because I'm sure in the same way that there's like the world of independent comic conventions, I'm sure there's other worlds like that in other forms of artistry that I have no idea about that are also going to be going away, you know.
Hmm.
Well, so you know, you mentioned your that you have a video, and I'll mention it in the intro, but you have a YouTube channel, Stimulus, and so have you kind of because you know as I said before, you know, you have some comics that you made that you're bringing to these like independent comic conventions. Are you now trying to like focus most of your energy into doing more kind of like video stuff on your YouTube page, or are you still trying to also do comics? And what made you decide to try to, you know, go and make a YouTube channel or whatever?
Yeah, the channel was initially supposed to just promote the comic, and that's why it's called Stimulus, because my comic was, stimulus. It was just whatever I found stimulating to me, which is usually just like stream of consciousness, weird stuff that I would draw, and not much of a narrative. It wasn't great, but it was like personal art stuff that was cathartic for me. And then after a while of trying to promote the comics and not really you know having a lot of success with that, I just sort of enjoyed making the videos themselves, not as a promotional thing, but just as like, okay, well, now this is my stimulus, this is my new platform, and my artwork stuff that I can do here. I also was getting better at making videos and animations, and so now I'm at the point where I just want to focus on animation and forget about comics. Even though I should say I recently saw a couple of gorgeous black and white renderings in a manga, and it kind of reminded me of like what I used to love, and I was like, oh man, again, I just want to capture some of that magic and just like try to make that or experience it or whatever. But then I pushed that feeling aside because that's, like I said, it's dead, and we're moving on.
Yeah.
And YouTube animation and spamming Reddit is where it's
That's
at.
the future. Put some flowers on the grave of what did you call, what is it called? You've said it like three times. Munga?
Manga,
Manga. Manga.
yeah.
Um yeah. Well, and
So that's, I mean, this could be a good segue into us talking about our own channels.
yeah, totally. I yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that, like uh you know, that creative process. So you know, when you're doing the comics, it's like you're doing the drawing versus like an animation with one of your videos. Um and do you feel like that scratches that same itch for you? And are you using similar software? I'm always interested in kind of the software questions.
Hmm.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it scratches the itch. Anything that's you know um, whether it's animation or video games or whatever, that's all stuff that I love. So it doesn't have to be black and white, hand inked, Japanese style or French style comics.
Yeah.
But what was the other part of your question?
Um, the are you using like the same technology software to that you would use to make your comics that you're using to like
Yeah.
animate your videos?
Well, I've learned some new software things that originally I was trying to automate animation using facial tracking,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of hit a dead end with that because at some point you get a better effect if you just draw the expressions that you want your character to make rather than trying to make your face show the nuances that are going to be tracked and then translated into this morphing thing on the drawing. So, I mean, and trying to save time, I feel like, you just lose something. So it's like, well, just do it the old-fashioned way anyway, even if that's more time-consuming. But I do have some tricks that do cut corners in an interesting way.
Mm-hmm. Um, so another thing I wanted to talk to you about with that is, your channel kind of has like this like variety of videos, right? Where it's like you have
Yeah.
some stuff where you're talking about the like how you're doing the animation or something, and then some of them are kind of like like the dream. You did a video recently about like a lucid dream, and you animated it,
Mm-hmm.
which is like super
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And then you also do like one of my favorite videos you did was when you rewrote the Puncher guy movie. What
Yeah.
movie was that?
Iron
Iron
Fist.
Fist, which is funny because I had never seen Iron Fist. I have no reference to it, and I still found the video super enjoyable and funny. So I feel like
Yeah.
that's a pretty good endorsement.
Yeah, that one. Well, I'm glad you liked that because that one was just for me.
Yeah.
It was like that was like the most personal one I've done, or just um, let's say self-indulgent. At one point, I was editing it and I was laughing so hard at my own jokes that I actually pulled a muscle in my abdomen and thought I gave myself a hernia, but it's gone away, so I think I'm okay now. But that just goes to show like you know how cathartic these little projects could be, and I put a lot of time into that and didn't get a good response, but it was like this is something I got to do. Um, but
Well, so that brings up something interesting for me, where it's like, with like my videos, for example, I have my like conspiracy theory character who does this like real fakes fact show, and that's like my favorite type of humor, where it's like it's bizarre, it kind of doesn't make sense. It's like, the in the realm of like Eric Andre or something like that. Not that I'm saying, not I'm comparing myself, but it's like that's what I'm thinking of when I am trying to
mhm.
or what I'm trying to attain or capture. But it's like nobody likes those videos. It's like literally like it's the least watched. People I'd be like, what are you doing with that? But
Yeah,
it's but I that then I have this struggle with them, like, well, this is about like my creative process, like my inspiration. So if I enjoy doing them, I should keep making them even if people don't like them. But then
yeah.
also you
I
have
don't
to
know.
like you want to try to refine and like make your stuff better. So if you're
Hmm.
getting a strong response of like, we don't get this and we don't enjoy it and it's not funny, should I just stop doing it?
Right, and I get discouraged pretty easily myself. But also I just get discouraged at like a lack of traffic. Like if I upload something and I just get like 100 views, then I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm never doing YouTube again. Because like you're saying that people don't like it. Well, how many people have seen it? I feel like if 1 million people saw it, you'd get a better sample size And then you could say, okay, so out of 1 million people, maybe 100,000 people liked it. I mean, that's huge if 100,000 people like one of your videos. You know what I mean? But even though if that's only 10%, but that's still a huge number. And so then at that point, you're just trying to find a niche, which is impossible until, you just have like your big break. And that's what we were talking about before, of like trying to market yourself using these available platforms to find an audience that likes your stuff that you think is good before you decide that it's not good. But it also might not be good also. Both things can be true.
Yeah. Well, that's my thing is
I've uploaded a lot of bad videos, so
yeah.
Well,
That
it's part of the process.
The there's this Ira Glass quote from This American Life, and he's talking about kind of the creative process, and he was like, when you get into doing it, you're getting into it because like you have good taste. You know what I'm like, you found, in the same way that you're trying to like find your voice, like you found your taste, you know what you like, and you have this kind of, you have good taste. But there's a gap at the beginning where your work is not going to live up to your own taste, which kind of makes you like hate it, and that's where a lot of people end up quitting. And his point is like, you have to just put yourself on a deadline, keep making stuff, and eventually your talent or your voice will catch up with your taste, and that's when hopefully something magical happens. And so I think about that a lot, but then also so like I've put myself like, oh, I'm trying to do one new video every week. But the other side of that is that sometimes I put out a video and I'm like, well, I'm not like proud of this. Like I wouldn't share this if I wasn't on a deadline, but I'm trying to like surrender to the process.
I think you're doing the right thing.
How do you kind of, what's your schedule with like trying to put stuff out, or how do you try to motivate yourself to keep working on these projects?
I don't have one. I've been unmotivated since I've been in quarantine, and I've lost my spark, and I'm trying to get that back because I have I don't know, at least 10 videos that I've written that I could just make. They're basically outlined to an extent where it's like it would be pretty easy to make these videos. And I don't know, I just don't want to do it unless I'm going to get a good response, I feel like. And so I'm not doing what you're describing, which is putting in the effort to get better and improve yourself. And I did a video on that, which, not just Ira Glass, but pretty much any successful person in the world has acknowledged that the way to get better is to be more prolific. A lot of geniuses have some of the worst ideas, but they just got them out and then moved on to another thing, rather than just like sort of biding your time and trying to work on like one good idea. Just come up with a bunch of garbage, and then eventually the good stuff will filter to the top anyway. The example that I use is from a book called Art and Fear, and it's about the hang-ups that I have as an artist that most artists have. And they point to a maybe fictional story about a ceramics teacher who, maybe this is made up, I don't know, but supposedly there's a ceramics teacher who divides her class into two groups. One group is going to be graded on quality, one group is going to be graded on quantity. And so the quantity group just, they make a bunch of shitty little pots or whatever they're doing. They're
Ashtrays.
Like molding all these like shitty like little things, and they make hundreds of them.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of cool shit, accidentally, because they're making so many things. And then the other group, they just sort of like try to make one good thing. And it's not as interesting as, the weird shit that the other group was coming up with, because they had just such a variety of things that they were trying after a while. And they had stumbled onto some good ideas and had improved their skills over time as well, because they're just doing so much of it. So obviously that's the way to do it, but I still can't force myself to be prolific. I'm just always just slacking off. I don't know.
Well, do you ever go through and like, write an outline, start animating something, like get to a point where it's, I don't know, somewhere between like say 60% and 100% done, and then just be like, you know what, fuck it, like this doesn't work. I'm just gonna bury this and not see the light of day. Because like I guess for myself, I have a feeling sometimes where it's like if I spend a day shooting something, and like kind of my process with a lot of my videos is I have like a general idea, but I figure it out. Just I like let the camera record, and then I just hopefully some funny jokes and stuff come up as I get further and further into the character or whatever. And so it's like if I spend a whole day like that, sometimes at the end I'm like, I don't know if I got anything good, but also I spent a whole day. I have 30 gigabytes of video on this. Like I can't just be like in the trash.
Yeah. So you feel more committed to it that way?
Well, more just that, even if I don't feel the quality is good, if I put the time in, I feel married to publishing it. Or even, and like, even like I'll be editing a video sometimes and be like, God, I don't really love this. So I'm wondering if you ever just will kill something even though you've already sunk in a lot of time into it.
Well, they just kind of hang over me. Like the Iron Fist thing, I wrote that a year prior to me doing it. And I just never got around to making the fucking thing, and had the little action figure that I got on sale that I talk about at the end of the video, and just talk about how shitty it is. I had that for a year.
Yeah. Sitting on your shelf.
And I was just like, I gotta make this fucking Iron Fist video. And yeah, and so I didn't know if I could let it go or not. And eventually I did it and just had fun with it. And I don't think it's worth much, because it, it didn't bring new viewers to my channel. And I think only a handful of people really got it, or got what I was trying to do. So yeah, like I don't know. Like I guess I'm better with smaller videos, because like these bigger projects just hang over me, because I'm intimidated by how daunting they seem, how much work will go into them, and then I just put them off. And so I have a lot of things that are probably good ideas, but if I can't, get them done in like 1 or 2 days, then they just sort of hang out there, and they're just hanging. And it's like, oh yeah, I had a really great idea 3 years ago that I never got around to doing.
Yeah. Well, I do think, to your point about that it's like there's something to be said for when the idea is fresh and you have the excitement for it, like riding that wave. Like I had a idea for a video last night, and I wrote it, and I was like, I could shoot this tomorrow. And I was like, but if I shoot it, like right now I'm in it. Like I just wrote it. Let me just shoot it, even though like I don't know when I'm going to, get to the editing part, but it's like I have the energy now, so I should follow that.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you about, well, actually, so first, before we go away from the Iron Fist video, but one thing I think I really liked about that video is, knowing you personally, I think you're super, like, you're really funny, and like I love your sense of humor, and that to me was, I was like, oh, this is your sense of humor, and and there's, I haven't like dove through all of your videos, but that to like. I didn't see, your other videos, like your animations and stuff, is like a different realm. It's a different lane,
Mm-hmm.
and that's also cool. But it was just, I was like, oh, like that's what I appreciated about that video,
Is it
and it
more
was super well
conversational? It's
edited.
like what you're used to hearing.
What was that? Sorry.
Because it's more conversational.
Well, no, just it was, it was it was just a different thing than, like
No,
a,
I mean the Iron Fist one.
yeah.
Um,
But that's just a sidebar. But what I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you written some like outlines and stuff. So is that typically how you make your videos? Like you write first and then you animate it, or do you ever start, with kind of more of the imagery and then, fit the narrative to it? Like what's kind of your process?
most of them I wrote out a script. Trying to think, because so a lot of them I just outlined and then I would just like say them in my car. Like I'd be driving to work and I would just say the monologue to practice it. And like I'm really good at memorizing monologues for whatever reason. And I think Iron Fist may have been like that just because it was like hanging over me for a year. I'm not sure how much of it I wrote. I think I may have done most of it just like off the dome or something. But I definitely like wrote sections of it. I know that. But yeah, a lot of it is either rehearsed in my car
Yeah.
or written out word for word.
Like something like your video where you're talking about like you're working for that like government agency and the security clearance
That one I wrote out and I actually read it off of a paper. So that one was pretty scripted.
yeah. And so with that you start by writing it out, and then once you have recorded the audio or whatever, then you go through and you make the animation for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something else I wanted to talk about was, you've kind of mentioned, or we've been talking about, like, Instagram and also, how do you get viewers or try to get people to go to your YouTube page? And
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with the fact that it's like, that's not what I enjoy about the process.
Of course not.
And it's like, so how much energy, you have to put some energy into it, but how much energy should you put into it versus the like creative, the art? I mean, for me, I put it in quotation marks. For you, I feel like you're actually an artist. For me, it's like, whatever. But yeah, like how do you balance that?
Well, first of all, everyone's an artist. I mean, like it's like as long as you're on the journey, it's like more of a mindset than anything else. But I think you gotta do a lot of scamming and spamming and scamming. I'll be honest with you, if paying people in Bangladesh to give me fake subscribers would actually work, I would do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. YouTube will pick that up pretty easily, and they will flag your channel as as sketchy, and they'll push you down on the algorithm, and you'll get less traffic. But I'm willing to do pretty much anything to get some fucking eyeballs on my work because I want to share it with people.
Yeah.
And that's why I went to conventions, because I was like, I could actually see people walk by my table and say, hey, come over here. I'm going to give you this comic for free. You read this. It's a 10-page comic. And I'll say, okay, Jesus Christ, I'll read your fucking comic. Online it's harder to do that. It's harder to get people to come over. And like, you'll see people posting like, hey, check out my video. And it's like, no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I like feel like.
But we're all desperate for that.
Yeah. Like that's one thing I won't do, where it's like you go comment on other people's videos and be like, check out my channel, subscribe to my thing, or like, I'll subscribe if you subscribe. I'm like,
I would do it if I thought it would be beneficial, but
yeah,
I don't think it is.
that's I think. So is our only hope then basically just like you just have to keep doing the work, and you have to expect that if it gets to a level, if it gets to a really, really good level, that eventually people will just find it because it's good?
I don't know. I think you have to compromise. I think you have to make something that's marketable, spam it, and then maybe you can do like the more self-indulgent personal things once people start to find you. But like a lot of my videos, I would put out tutorials, which I haven't been doing recently, but I used to put out tutorials just because that was the only thing pulling anyone to my channel. And then once they got there, like, a couple hundred people would watch my stupid animations. But most of the people were just there for the tutorials because they're trying to learn how to do something in Photoshop. They're Googling, how do I do this in Photoshop? And then they find me. Otherwise, they'd never find me. So I think my next thing, and this is sort of, going back to what I was saying about being so discouraged, I think my next video is just going to be my Star Wars rewrite. There's like the Iron Fist rewrite. I want to do that with Star Wars. Star Wars is big. It'll be marketable because everyone knows Star Wars. No one gives a fuck about Iron Fist.
Yeah. But that was like what was so great about it. I was like, I don't even know what this movie is, but I love that we're really breaking it down.
Yeah.
That being said,
yeah, and that is part of the joke. But
that being said, I see what you mean. Like, I would be interested to hear your take on like how do you make Star Wars better? Because it's a fucking shit show.
Yeah, and if you are someone who has thoughts about that, I'll have you on my channel to talk about it, or we could talk about something else. But before I come out with that video, maybe we could do like a Star Wars nerd bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Well, so
we'll talk about that later. But
can I give you my quick 30-second Star Wars pitch that I like my idea for the Star Wars franchise?
As of today?
As of well,
or like going back in time?
No, so not for the films, but like, so I have a Disney Plus thing, and so I tried to watch the episode 9, and I was like, I couldn't. I turned it off. But
yeah, you have to be really drunk.
Okay, maybe I'll try that. And actually, honestly, I know everybody was shitting themselves about The Mandalorian, but I tried to watch that too, and after like 3 or 4 episodes, I was like, I can't with this either, unfortunately. But my point is, so I was watching the originals, and what I thought was interesting now that Disney owns Star Wars is that there's a possibility to kind of go like the Marvel route where, people can take certain parts of these stories and, make their own movie or show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would love to see someone do is take the Hoth battle and then make it like an epic, like 1917 or Dunkirk. And the whole movie is just the Hoth battle from episode 5, like the drama of, we're trying to get these storage ships out, and not just like glancing over and like, oh, we shot one laser, but it's like maybe they lose one, I don't know, like, and you're from the perspective of the foot soldier in the trenches. Holy shit, now these walkers are I just,
you get to know all the characters and stuff. So instead of just like 20 or 30 minutes, it would be like a full 2 hours of
exactly
of the drama,
and you're bought into the characters. It's also more violent, maybe.
I think that would be smart, because like the Rogue One thing, I think was supposed to be like that.
Yeah, which was one of my more like of the new Star Wars material. That was probably one of the ones I enjoyed more than the new movies or
yeah.
Actually, I did underratedly. I watched the Solo movie, and I know everybody
Uh-huh.
hated it, and I was pretty high when I watched it, but I kind of
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I thought it was like,
I was also blackout drunk for that one. I haven't seen anything Star Wars sober in a while. Actually, Mandalorian. Well, we can talk about Mandalorian when I have you on my
yeah,
channel, because there's some things that we need to cover, and I have various thoughts, but I'll just say you have to be drunk for all this stuff or
yeah,
high. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Well, okay, so we should probably wrap up here in a second, but let me see if there was anything else I felt like we really. Oh, so here's another question I had. So I have two more questions. One, I wondered, do you have anxiety ever about kind of like publishing your art to the world? And two, kind of in conjunction with that question, do you get like what something interesting I've been getting is it's like, you get feedback from like your friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's like, I, you know, like I understand what you're telling me, but also like you're not making anything. Like this is
Mm-hmm.
you don't understand kind of like my vision, and I appreciate it, but it's I don't know. Like do you how do you deal with that kind of feedback, and do you think we should be listening to that, or staying true to kind of our creative vision, so to speak?
Yeah. So first about the anxiety, I mean, I would reference that Fear and Art book. It's a short book. Everyone should read it. It covers all the anxieties. Me personally, um, I mean, I have a lot of anxieties. The anxiety of sharing stuff went away in college because I made a lot of bad art projects in college and shared them, and that was just what we did. And then when I was a graphic designer, I would throw out a lot of bad ideas, and they're just ideas. It's fine. So I don't really care about that. Um, you know, yeah, most of my hangups come from like insecurities about like, oh, I didn't get enough comments on this video.
Yeah.
I only got 4 comments. Come on. So that's more of my weakness. And then the other point about criticism, yeah, I mean, a lot of people aren't gonna really have a sense of what you're doing. Um, you think about um, uh, I don't know. Like I wrote like a really weird story that I shared with my parents one time, and they didn't know what to say, and they're just sort of like, well, um, I'm sure that Quentin Tarantino didn't really ask his parents about what he was putting out, or who did they say? I think they referenced who's the Shining guy?
Oh, M. Night Shyamalan.
No.
Oh no,
No,
that's
but M Night Shyamalan, his parents should have shut him down more. I feel like his parents should have been like, you know what, son, you're not talented.
you know what?
Don't make another
What
movie.
about accounting for you? I feel like you're a numbers
Yeah.
guy. No, yeah, sorry, The Shine. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick? Is that?
Well, that's a good example too. No, I was thinking of Stephen King.
Oh, Stephen
I
King.
think they said something like, well, Stephen King wrote a lot of fucked up shit that he probably, his mom didn't care for or whatever. Something like that.
Wait, so that's what your parents said
And
to you about your story that you shared with them?
they were cool about it. They were kind of like, well, we're not going to say much.
Yeah.
It's just, I, I guess it's well written. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
disturbing, But, disturbing's okay. I mean, there are a lot of disturbing movies, and, if that's what you want to make, I guess you're on the right track.
Yeah.
So, so I think that's the right response. And, um, yeah, I don't know. It's different, like, because your friends know you.
Yeah.
And so if you put in like a weird scene, yeah, you're gonna have like some self-consciousness about it when you're writing it.
Well,
And you're
also
gonna be
they're
like,
going to
oh,
interpret it differently versus like if you're kind of just consuming art in a vacuum, it's just what it is, versus if like you have a very personal relationship with the person who created it, you're like, wow, it's kind of like a weird turn for Garrett specifically that he like put in this
yeah,
scene.
yeah, yeah.
I guess the thing for me, the comment I'm receiving most is just like, and the thing is, maybe I should just listen, but it's like that I need to edit myself more, and um, and I'm like, yeah, I see what you're saying, and I get it, but I feel like the thing is that it's like I don't need to edit myself more, I just need to get better.
Is that like the kill your darlings thing?
What's the kill your darlings thing?
I think that's when like you need to like get rid of all the stuff that is stuff that you like. It's self-indulgent. It's like, ooh, this scene's so good. It doesn't really fit, but I love this scene. And then it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't serve the whole of what you're trying to do. So just get rid of it. And as a creator, you're like, yeah, but I like it so much. I think it's like one of those things.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is a good point. And I guess that's also, like when you talk about like when you're editing that the Fist movie, and you're like dying at like some of your own jokes. It's like I have that with some of my videos where I'm like, God, that's so good, and I know that's self-indulgent, but that's where you should start from, right? Like if you like it, I have to assume there's probably like 50 other people who have the same sense of humor as me who would also like it. How do you find those people is another question, but
That is the question.
yeah. Um yeah. I don't know. Maybe I need to make my videos shorter.
That's usually a good idea. I've heard that advice before, especially for things that you want to go viral. Like the average viral video is a minute and a half, no longer, something like that. Because it's more shareable that way. And that's all playing the game,
But they
which
also
is
say that
what we're getting at.
the 15-minute video mark is also like that in the algorithm, the YouTube pushes those up the most. Like that's like their
Oh,
sweets, or I don't know.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, because they value watch time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that's a good point.
I think the other thing too, I haven't been able to figure out how, but I feel like YouTube's also like a weird pyramid scheme where there's all these people who have made it on YouTube by telling other people how to make it on YouTube,
Yeah,
which is,
yeah,
I feel like it's like a weird dynamic that isn't discussed about YouTube enough.
yeah. Well, that's everything. Um, people who make money off of the stock market are just selling books on how to make money off of the stock market. They're usually not doing it themselves. They make most of the money from books.
Mm.
I think most of the people who made it big from the gold rush were the people who catered to the gold miners and not the gold miners.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I understand what you're saying. Like there's a weird thing there. And it's like, wait, so you're not really offering anything of value. It's sort of like a paradox.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is it's like I kind of want to like do like a parody of because it's like there's so many videos of like, is 2020 too late to start your own YouTube channel, or
Yeah.
and I want to like make a parody of that, but again, when you talk about audience or whatever, that's a hard, like it's a random thing, you know that I feel like the the 30 subscribers I've built so far, that's not what they're looking for. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very specific lane. Like, only other people who are making videos would really be like, oh, this is, funny
Well,
or
you got
whatever.
to spam on Reddit so you get more than 30 subscribers.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I got to get into the Reddit
I
game.
think the joke could be, just workshopping here. If you do a video within a video and it just gets meta, and it's just you, pulling back the curtain, and like you make the video of how to get 1 million hits on YouTube, and then
And then it has
it shows
40
you uploading the
views.
video, and then it's just you looking at the video, and you see the count is like it's like 2 views, and it's just you because you refreshed it once, and you're just like just waiting for the hits.
I like that. That's good.
And then maybe there's another twist because you usually need another joke. You can't just have like the one punchline. It needs to twist again.
Yeah. Well, okay, I had one last question, and then I feel like we've really covered it all. Probably maybe more in depth than
We
we
did
needed
it.
to. But this was fun. Thank you, by the way.
Thank you.
But so my last question is, like, you also have, like, you kind of make your career is in this, right? Like,
Yeah, because I'm a video editor.
you're a video editor,
But-
and you do you've done graphic design
Yeah.
and stuff. So my question is, because my parents are concerned with my direction in life, and they're starting to be like, all right, you're 30, like, but you're gonna go back to school? Are you gonna, like, what are you gonna, like, well, why don't you're liking this video thing? Why don't you start working in that? And I have this fear that it's like, if I start doing it 9 to 5 and it's like stuff that's not inspiring to me, and it's just kind of like going through the motions of the software, that it's gonna kill my enjoyment of my passion project, which is like my YouTube channel or whatever, and making these videos. How is that a problem for you? And if so, like, how do you manage that?
Well, I haven't monetized anything. I've never put an ad on any of my videos. I've never treated it as a job. So it's always just been something I do for shits and giggles.
Well, I meant like
And so it's pure
the
in that
work
way.
as like a video editor, or like doing graphic
Oh,
design.
you're saying as keeping the YouTube thing as a side thing?
Well, just that, like, if you're doing 40 hours a week of kind of like mind-numbing video editing or design work, does that burn out the flame of creativity on the weekends
Yes.
to work on
Yes.
your own shit?
It has. But ironically, even when work is slow, I'm not necessarily productive. Just strange. But yeah, I do feel like I only have so much creative energy. So if I spend it at work, then maybe I got a few hours per week, and that's about it. And that's why if you look at my output, it's so low. And going back to the Ira Glass types, there are people who just have a lot of energy, and they have their day job, and then they come home, and then they just put in another 8 hours, and then they only sleep 6 hours. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But also, like I'm saying, like last week, I had a week to do whatever I wanted, and I was binging Dark.
Oh, so good. No, you don't like it?
I mean, I did like it because I was binging it, but I feel like they could have just had like 2 seasons.
I
instead of
haven't
3
seen the
seasons.
third season yet, so I've just
I
seen
just
the first
well,
two.
the thing is, I watched it in 3 days, so it's like a different experience. But yeah, so like I could have been making videos. Like I said, I've got all these videos planned, and instead I'm just being a piece of shit, and I don't know why that is, but it's pretty universal.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking my next video will be, how to stop being a piece of shit, and then it'll just be, and then it'll cut to me in my pajamas, just drinking a 12-ounce Manhattan
Yeah.
and looking at my comments
Yeah. Diving into those analytics.
and wondering why I'm not doing better. But yeah, I don't know. I think it goes back to that book, Art and Fear. It covers a lot of these hangups. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. There's another the other quote that I try to think of with, this kind of thing is it's a famous Jerry Seinfeld quote where he was talking about when he was a young comedian and he's sitting there and he's like, I don't want to like sit down and write jokes. And then he was looking out at these guys who were like construction workers, and they're like walking to work with their pail lunches because it's like 1930 or whatever year it was when Jerry Seinfeld was young. But he was like, I need to like approach comedy with that same work ethic where it's like, well, it's 8 a.m. on Monday. Got to sit down and do the work.
Got to pour some fucking concrete.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that's totally realistic with like the creative process, but I'm trying to do more of that where I'm like, I don't feel inspired, but I'm just going to turn on the camera and see what happens. And
yeah, I think that's what you have to do. I've just been so unmotivated and don't know how to change that. Maybe I need to exercise more, except that there's ash in the air. Not to dox myself, but I'm in a location in California that's on fire, which is actually
but that could be anywhere in California.
That's anywhere in California.
Yeah. Well, I think this is like a nice uplifting note for us to end on.
Yeah.
Well, so, people, my 30 subscribers, I'm seeing explosive growth, 4 subscribers over the month of August. So, it's,
okay.
I think I'm, well on the way to having a real following. But those subscribers, where should they go to check out, your work? What would you point them towards? How do they find you? And obviously I'll put a link in the bio also, so they could just click that. But I don't know. I feel like that's how people end podcasts, is the promotion thing.
I would say definitely click that link. If you want to type it in your URL box, I think it's youtube.com/c/stimulus video. Dope.
Well, Garrett, thank you so much. Check out Stimulus Video, Stimulus on YouTube, subscribe, and thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
There you have it, my conversation with my friend Garrett of the YouTube channel Stimulus. Once again, let me just say, go right now into the description of this video and click that link to his YouTube channel. Subscribe, check out his videos. He's got a lot of really cool stuff on there, some interesting stuff, some funny stuff. It's a wide array, and I really recommend that you guys check it out. And thank you to him, Garrett. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. And thank you to all of you guys as well for watching. Hopefully you learned a little something about comics, and hopefully that also, if you're, if you feel like an artist, then maybe that conversation was as inspiring or cathartic as it was for me. So anyways, before I go, obviously there's one last thing that we gotta say, that we gotta get off our chest. The elephant in the room, come on. You gotta subscribe. Gotta click that little button. I think it's right about here. Gotta do it. Gotta click that subscribe button. Join the Laugh at Pat family. It's a fun time. It's a good fun time. What are you waiting for? Get in now while the getting's good. The Laugh at Pat family, man. That's what you want. You want to hit that subscribe and join the Laugh at Pat family. I'm telling you, you're not gonna regret it. You're really not gonna regret it. Subscribe to Garrett's channel, then hit the subscribe button right here, and that's a good time. You've really curated your channel subscriptions nicely with those 2 subs. So just, hit the subscribe. Anyways, thank you guys again so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you next Wednesday. And until then, bye-bye!